3, 2, 1.
Research. Innovate.
Educate. This is RTP. This is RTP180.
Oh, hi. Didn't see you there. I'm Wade. Nice to see you again. I got foam on my beard. Welcome to RTP180, Research Triangle Park's only live interactive talk series, coming to you through the magic of Zoom for at least a little while longer. This is RTP180 for May 2021. We are talking about the small business ecosystem. As I mentioned, I am your MC, Wade Mentor. You may have not seen me for the last couple weeks, months. I don't know. Time has no meaning anymore in 2021, does it? I've missed the last couple of RTP 180s because I've been calling Carolina Hurricanes games, but fresh off of a playoff win last night, I am back here ensconced comfortably in the frontier, as far as you know, for RTP 180. Now, we have sponsors who make this all happen, and I'd like to give a shout out to them right now. First of all, RTP 180 is brought to you by RTI International. Thank you for making RTP 180 possible all these years. Also, this live broadcast is brought to you by Dual Boot Partners, making it happen through the magic of Zoom since about April of last year. Now, here's how this works. Whether you're new or you have been here before, we have speakers. This month, we have 6 speakers instead of our customary 5 because they're all so good we couldn't cut any of them. They will speak for about 5 minutes on their particular area of expertise in the small business ecosystem, followed by 5 minutes of Q&A from you, our audience. Whether you're here in Zoom with us or you're watching us on Facebook Live, we want your questions. As you hear our panelists talk, if you have a question, please put that into Zoom chat or Facebook chat. We will use that during the Q&A portion of the show. You can also connect live with us via Twitter. You can @FrontierRTP. Or you can post using the hashtag RTP180. We'll be looking for questions from you in that medium as well. Now, the frontier, which you see behind me, and I'm not totally disappearing into a virtual background, this is completely real, is the area's only free, and I repeat free, co-working facility. And guess what? We're open! That's right. You can come into the frontier. You can come co-work. You can book event space there. We are open. Please contact the Frontier if you'd like to get out of your house. I know I would. We also do things outside. We have food truck rodeos. We have the box yard opening up. We have yoga. We do all sorts of cool stuff. Check it out. We're also doing RTP Fit meditation every Tuesday from 12 to 12:30 p.m. You can come grab a hammock here at the Frontier in Research Triangle Park or join us virtually. For more information about that and all the events happening at the Frontier, visit frontier.rtp.org/calendar. Now we're talking about the small business ecosystem that makes this region amazing, and we've got 6 speakers to do it. So without any further ado, it's time to introduce our first speaker of the evening. She is the Executive Director of Innovate Raleigh, where she promotes and supports entrepreneurship and innovation in the Triangle region. Please welcome my friend and yours, Bridget Harrington.
Wade, thank you for that. It's funny. I think I might be wearing the same shirt as that picture.
That's spooky.
That is weird. Time has no meaning, which is yesterday. So thank you, Wade. I've missed seeing you. So Wade has emceed every single one of the Innovate Raleigh summits that I've led. And I hope that this year will be no different. And thank you, RTP Foundation, for putting this together. You do such amazing work for the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And I'm so grateful for the support for Innovate Raleigh and all the work that you do throughout the Triangle. So how do we make the Triangle a top center for innovation and entrepreneurship? This is Innovate Raleigh's mission and something that we have worked towards since the founding of the organization almost 10 years ago. I've not been with the organization that long. I've only been here a few years. I was born in Bangkok, grew up in DC, went to high school in Greenville, North Carolina, college in Chapel Hill, and spent most of my career in New York with some time in Los Angeles. So after exiting from my company, I took a year off and traveled around the world. And most recently, I was living in San Francisco. So I've lived in some of the most innovative places in the world, and now I live in the Triangle. I never thought I would be back here, but I love it. I moved back here to be closer to family and quickly discovered that it was one of the best kept secrets in the United States, or so I thought, but not anymore. Some of the most innovative companies in the world continue to move to and consider our region. But what I think is still a secret is the incredible innovation coming from our homegrown startups and small companies. Did you know that our local companies are responsible for the largest venture around the United States and the largest software acquisition to date? Of course, I'm talking about Red Hat and Epic, but there's some incredible momentum also coming from our smaller companies too. So the question is, what can we do to continue to foster innovation and make our region a top center for entrepreneurship? I believe that we should take a nimble, targeted approach I believe that we should take a nimble, targeted. Sorry, we have a kindergartner here, and he just is loud outside, so forgive me. So Innovate Raleigh was founded by Councilwoman and current Mayor Marianne Baldwin and Dr. Terry Lomax, who was a chancellor at state at the time. So these two incredible women convened a summit inviting a remarkable group of business and academic and community leaders to look closely at our ecosystem and search for the gaps that, if filled, would propel our community forward. So during this first summit, the group identified a number of gaps, including the need for things like a co-working space, a startup accelerator, a direct flight to San Francisco, and this group got to work on filling those gaps. That first summit has been replicated every year since. So these are pictures actually from the first summit that I worked on that Wade emceed at. Really had a good time. So each fall, the Innovate Raleigh Summit convenes a group of entrepreneurs and business leaders and engaged citizens from across our region to highlight inspiring stories while exploring the vision for the future of our community and creative, innovative ways to meet our challenges. Every year, new challenges and opportunities emerge as we look to become a top center for entrepreneurship and innovation. So in recent years, we worked on gaps around increasing capacity for storytelling in our local media, improving funding opportunities for our local companies, establishing better connectivity between startups and broader business community, and creating an asset map to connect entrepreneurs to the resources that they need. Innovate Raleigh serves to be a connector, a catalyst, and convener. So just before I came on board at Innovate Raleigh, our board formed a partnership with the Raleigh Chamber and Wake County Economic Development. And so this partnership has allowed our organization to support their work in business recruitment and expansion. So those big companies that I mentioned earlier, while also helping facilitate their help in helping us have more impact in the work that we do for the smaller business ecosystem. So I believe that's how we're going to continue to make our region a top center for entrepreneurship and innovation. We'll continue to co-create ways to make our ecosystem stronger. The founders of Innovate Raleigh laid a solid foundation, and I believe that we should continue taking a nimble, targeted, community-led approach to continue building on this work. So what can you do? So if you have the means and the interest, invest. We're currently planning our 10th annual summit, which is kind of crazy. So if you want to help out, just get involved, get in touch with me at hello@Innovate Raleigh. And also, if you're an entrepreneur, I'd love to hear what you think. What could we do better? Where are the gaps that you're seeing as you go along your journey? These are the things that make our ecosystem stronger, is finding out where those gaps are. So email me. hello@Innovate Raleigh is my email. I'll put it also in chat. And yeah, get in touch. Let me know how we can do so. And yeah, thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, Bridget Harrington from Innovate Raleigh. First question comes from Jim. in Zoom chat. You've mentioned that the Triangle area is looking to become a leader and a tech hub in the global economy. What is it that makes you think that we're not already there? CED started this work 35 years ago.
That is a good question. I actually asked Amanda when I was thinking about this talk about how I think we are a top center, and I think that we can continue improving our game and getting better and better. So yeah, I don't disagree, Jim. I think that our board, we talk about this often, and I think that we're close. We're getting there. I think that, you know, if you look at some of the metrics around, you know, these really, I think we're like, what was it? We're in the top 10 globally of emerging ecosystems. So I think we're getting to be the top, but it would be nicer, you know, we continue. There's always areas for improving, and that's what we strive to do.
All right, question coming in from social media. How do you think about the role of Raleigh as a city and the Triangle as a larger ecosystem working together to attract talent?
You know, can you ask it again? What's the question?
Sure. How do you think about the role of Raleigh as the city, as the head of Innovate Raleigh, alongside the Triangle region as a whole, Durham, Chapel Hill, Cary? How do you see those working together to build a great ecosystem?
Yeah, so we are, you know, we call it Innovate Raleigh. It started in Innovate Raleigh with some of the leaders that were here, but we're stronger together, and we really believe in this regional ecosystem. I know Krista and Kelly are speaking later, and Brent, like all of us, we work together for this ecosystem. We just happen to be called Innovate Raleigh, but we're in this to make our region as strong as it possibly can be. We're not like rivals with Durham or Morrisville or anything. We're all in this together. So absolutely.
Except everybody hates Morrisville. No, I'm kidding, Morrisville. And then last question, during the last year and a half of COVID, what has been the most encouraging sign you've seen for the region during these trying times?
So one of the things that we do is that we fund a reporter for the News and Observer to tell the story of our ecosystem, and so his reporting is really some incredible stories that are coming out of our ecosystem. And one of the things, he did a story recently about new business starts. It's incredible, and I think our my colleague at NC Idea is going to be talking later, like the number of applications that they're seeing about people that are starting companies and looking for funding and innovating at this time. It's really incredibly encouraging. So I think the numbers are definitely on our side for COVID, which is, I wouldn't have predicted that a year ago, but it's just incredible.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, keep an eye out for the next Innovate Raleigh Summit. And you can thank our first speaker, Bridget Harrington.
Thanks, Wade. See you later.
See you then. All right, one speaker down, 5 more to go. We just keep the train rolling here with a customer experience executive who's passionate about innovation and entrepreneurship. And now the new president and CEO of the Council for Entrepreneurial Development. Please welcome Kelly Rowell.
Thanks, Wade. Appreciate the dramatic entrance, and welcome everyone. I am thrilled to be a part of this series with, as Bridget said, our colleagues here. We're in this together, and we are a large ecosystem. Jim, thanks for the shout out about CD and our history. And so just here today to share a little bit about the niche that we've carved out to support companies specifically, and how we're doing that. So Amanda, if you want to advance to the next slide, I will show you who is on the CED team. These are my peeps. I would be nothing without them. And I'm just honored to have the opportunity to work with them from day to day. Hopefully you recognize some of these faces. Myself started as a vice president of customer experience with CED 4 years ago, understanding the value that we add to the ecosystem. We were established in 1984 by the business community because they saw something very special in the triangle. They saw all of the ingredients to bake a really amazing and productive ecosystem for startups here, and we continue to truck on nearly 40 years later, doing what we can to support high growth startups and where they need it the most. Jay Bigelow is my entrepreneur in residence, also my head of entrepreneurship. He does all of our one-to-one consulting and works hands-on with all of the companies that we're supporting. Hunter Young, he is a specialist in the area of capital. 2020 was a banner year. Investors were investing in our region. Our state saw $3.4 billion in equity invested in across 187 companies that are growing here. So if that's not an impressive number, I don't know what is. And then Brenton Barbara, who joined us right 6 weeks before we went into COVID, who helps to maintain our relationships in the community and those that invest in us so that we can do the good work that we do. Matthew, Mary, and Catherine also help to keep the team together, keep the team talking with the community, and all of the work that we're doing, building some awareness around the companies that we're supporting. Next slide, please. So I'm a visual person, so I like to work from pictures. Sometimes it's hard to articulate what CD does. 9 months out of the year, we are planning for Venture Connect, and that seems to be the most public facing work that we do. It's an annual summit that showcases all of the companies that we work with throughout the year, but the 365 days and the really hard work comes from what we offer those companies. So on average, like I said, about 200 companies we're working with day in, day out to make sure that they're getting what they need, either from our internal team or our many, many resources across the ecosystem. We are one node in a much bigger support system, and we play a very important role in helping entrepreneurs when they should connect to certain resources at a certain time in their growth to maximize the value there and accelerate that growth as quickly as they can. On the left side, you will see a little bit about what CD does with these companies. Like I said, day in, day out, 3 primary areas of support that I like to highlight. Education is our primary area. We are a 501c3 education charity by charter. We have a few programs in play right now. The Grow Incubator was something that we launched. It's actually a retooling of a former program that we had called Fast Track and then Fast Track Tech Venture. And it's an incubator series, 12 weeks, that connect companies with mentors and help them really work on their business to accelerate to market. We're going to be graduating our 3rd cohort in June, and that's going to be open to the public, so keep an eye out for that. We'd love for you to come celebrate their success and all the hard work they've done over the last 12 weeks. Throughout the year, we offer specialized workshops. We're really focused on bringing serial founders in to talk about challenges that they had and sharing those experiences so that will help to formulate solutions for companies that are growing. It's a form of advice that we put a priority on, and we did a lot of that at our virtual summit that we just had back in March that saw some of the most highest engagement numbers that we've seen from a historical perspective. The other thing I really want to talk about today is mentorship, and again, how much impact that can have on a company and how we structure that. The other 2 areas of support is capital. Some companies bootstrap and take a really tough road to do that, but it's so rewarding in the end, and we support that decision that every founder has to make, and we support those companies. But for those companies that do decide to take on investment capital, we help to prepare them for those conversations. We help to connect them to Series A investors when they're ready for it. We have a very accessible local community here of seed investors, so less than is needed there. However, 80% of funding for companies comes from out of region investors, capital that travels across state lines. That was not a thing 10 years ago. And so we play a really key role in helping people get ready for that. Lastly, I'll just say resources, those come from the business community, and we help to connect them day in, day out to the companies that need their support. We'll go ahead and advance a couple more slides here. and I'll land on the ecosystem map since I'm out of time. This is just a quick picture of all of the people that are here to support you if you're building a business. And we start every conversation talking about what your needs are and who you should connect with, and we help to make those connections. Want to leave this with visual with you to understand that there are a lot of people out there to support you, not just CD. And we're privileged to have the opportunity to work with everyone on this panel today and the entire community. So let us know how we can help you. We are only an email or phone call away, and look forward to speaking with you. Go get them, guys. You're doing great work.
All right, great stuff there from Kelly Rowell. Any questions from the audience? Get your questions into Zoom chat or Facebook chat. First question is coming in via social media. CED obviously is one of the longest tenured entrepreneurial organizations in the area. It's a very long history. What is CED's vision for the future?
I'm all about collective impact. I think you're going to hear that from everyone on the panel today. We are stronger together, and we all can contribute in different ways. My vision for CD in the future is really to elevate those serial founders that have benefited from the work of the ecosystem and the support of the ecosystem. And I think we can find really unique and impactful ways to do that.
Excellent. Next question coming in also over social media. A lot of news about larger companies taking notice of the talent in the area. How do you see the influx of offices from large companies either supporting or hurting the entrepreneurial ecosystem here in the Triangle?
I feel like these larger companies like Google and Amazon and Apple, they lead by investing in the communities that they have a presence in. I think it's only good news that they're here. I think they will attract more talent. They'll build more awareness about what North Carolina has to offer, and as we move towards a hybrid, work from home and in the office, I only think that it will help to increase the talent pool here, and will help to draw others in that can be shared across other businesses as people make moves in their career.
All right, one last question coming in also via social media. If you had to name one thing that you would consider kind of the Triangle region's secret sauce that sets us apart from other areas and other ecosystems, what would that be?
I put a lot of credit on our university partners here. They are churning out amazing innovators every day. I think we should be focused on how to keep those innovators here in the Triangle, building their businesses and helping to, strengthen economic growth here. They are a key piece and a unique identifier for other ecosystems that don't have as many universities to choose from. I think that's a secret sauce of ours.
As a parent of an incoming first year at Chapel Hill next year, I am excited by that. Ladies and gentlemen, big hand for Kelly Rowell.
Thanks, everyone. It was great to be here.
All right, coming up in the third spot, he's an impact amplifier based in the Bull City who's passionate about bringing people together. He's also the chief community builder at Provident 1898. Please welcome Justin Minott.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Bridget and Kelly, you are both brilliant and your work is brilliant. I'm just so inspired, taking crazy notes here in my notebook. Thanks for having me here. I'm going to share some lessons that we've learned at Provident 1898 here in Durham, North Carolina, as we've built this local entrepreneurial ecosystem. And I believe these lessons really have implications from the micro all the way to the macro. And so for you as a listener, wherever you are, whatever role you play in the ecosystem, know that you play a role, even if it's, running your family ecosystem all the way up to some of these larger statewide, nationwide, global ecosystems. I believe the lessons are really relevant. So Provident 1898, we are a Black-centric co-working community. And all of those words I chose very intentionally. Black-centric is we are centering the Black experience. not Black exclusive, Black centric, centering the Black experience here in Durham and beyond, making space for people that don't always have space, and when they enter other spaces feel like they're switching, code switching, or having to navigate something that's not quite for them. It might accommodate them, but it's not quite for them. So we're leaning very heavily in that direction. Co-working people are familiar with, but the in co-working here for us, it's community, it's collaboration, all of these things beyond just the space, which is why we call ourselves a co-working community. Space is how we do it, but community is what it's actually about, bringing people together. And I love the word ecosystem. I love that we're focusing on that tonight because it's so apropos. So my first lesson that I want to share is that thinking of it as an ecosystem is very relevant. When you think of something as an ecosystem, it's living, it's breathing, it's not stagnant, it's not just sitting there like you set it up and then you forget about it. You actually have to pay attention to, for example, these big companies coming in. How does that affect when they come in? How does that affect the living organisms there when you're introducing this new thing into an ecosystem? And it's paying attention to, who's not here in the ecosystem, what's missing from the ecosystem in terms of resources and people. When we're looking at, who's sitting around the table, who's not sitting around the table in this, or who's not thriving, and how do we help this portion of our ecosystem thrive? Do they need more of something, less of something? So I want us to think about it as this living, organic organism as we start to have these conversations, or as we continue having these conversations. I think we do our best work, and this is our second lesson, we do our best work when we know the role that we play in the ecosystem, and we play that role. And specifically for organizations, so I'm speaking for Provident 1898 here, it's easy to get focused on us as the hero of the story, and we're not. We need to center the right hero as the hero of the story. So for us, it's the entrepreneur. It's the business owner, it's the leader. Our role is, like, if this was on a story arc like Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, we're not Frodo in Lord of the Rings, we're not the hero, we're Gandalf, we're the guide, right? We're supplying some of the resources and the guidance. If it was Star Wars, we're not Luke Skywalker, we're Yoda. And that's a very different role to play. And I think we do a lot better. And I'm excited to have incredible colleagues here up on the stage, because you all do this so well, is centering the right people as the hero of the story. And when we do that, it allows for the type of collaboration that we're seeing here in the region, because it's not about the individual organizations, it's about the people we serve, it's about our community, it's about making sure the triangle thrives as a region, as a larger ecosystem here. And we get lost if we get focused on ourselves. So that's been a big lesson for us, is the more we look out to the community, the more that we look out to the people that we serve and really ask the questions and get curious about what they need, then we center them as the hero and our role becomes the support. The work gets so much more fun. The collaborations start flowing because you're not protecting your own little ecosystem. It's about the bigger picture and the role you play. And then the last thing that we've seen here is just the power of creating collisions. So I'm just going to share a quick story. There's an Ethiopian tribe. Malcolm Gladwell talks about this in one of his books. There's an Ethiopian tribe that is one of the last successfully nomadic tribes on the planet. And one of their secrets is this practice that they have of information sharing. So anytime they see another member of their tribe, they're traveling from different regions, they'll stop and they'll chat and they'll spend hours just, here's what I was seeing. So the water was drying up over here and this elephant was going that way. Okay, great. Well, the gazelles over here were doing this and it was a little bit dry. Like, they're sharing this information. When they meet another member of their tribe, they'll say, well, I heard this and I saw this. Now, what did you hear? And together they make a way more complete version of the local map than they would by themselves. That type of information sharing, creating some more of those collisions. And this is a perfect example of the work that you're doing with RTP180 and these presentations. is creating more of that information sharing that, hey, this is what we're seeing. Okay, cool. This is what we're seeing. Together, we get to make a way more comprehensive map. And this Ethiopian tribe has been able to navigate, even now in this globalized, crazy tech world, navigate, operating in a nomadic lifestyle because of this practice. And so Bridget, to your point about information sharing and staying nimble, I think that's how we do it as a region, is continuing to lean on one another and open source as much as we possibly can about what's really happening here. I think that we do really well when we remember that our mutual liberation is inextricably tied to one another. We're not alone in this. That's a theme of this panel tonight. We're not alone in any of this. And I mean, a global pandemic, an airborne global pandemic, is something that can remind us of that really quickly. Borders don't mean anything when it's airborne. Like, we're in this together. And when we remember that and move like that, the world becomes really beautiful. We take care of each other in really powerful ways, because I am you, you are me. We're connected. We cannot separate that in any way. So those are a few of the lessons that we've learned as we've built this Black-centric co-working community here in the great city of Durham, North Carolina. Thank you all so much.
All right, some great stuff there from Justin Minott. Let's go to you for your questions. First question is coming in via Twitter using the hashtag RTP180. Is the 1898 in Provident 1898 a reference to the Wilmington coup?
Interesting. So this is one of the crazy parallels. So while that coup was happening in 1898 in Wilmington, the NC Mutual Life Insurance Company was being formed here in Durham, North Carolina. So while they were destroying in Wilmington, and everybody should be looking this up, destroying the Black infrastructure and business scene and political scene in Wilmington, Provident 1898, or the 1898 there, that's the year where Black Wall Street was actually really thriving here in Durham. So you have this kind of paradox of the Black experience in North Carolina right there. So yeah, thanks for that question.
All right, next question is coming in Zoom chat from Faye. How do you believe that the region can better balance the goal of being a region known for tech innovation with that urgent need to invest in small business, particularly with the understanding that BIPOC entrepreneurs are woefully underrepresented specifically in the tech sector?
That's probably Faye Horwitz. And so coming to me with these high-level questions, Faye, you're incredible.
Maybe.
Yeah, right? No one's telling. I think it happens like this. Again, it's the focus on, we are not in this by ourselves. So if the tech companies or this growing tech industry can realize that it has its part to play in the ecosystem, and it openly comes to the table wanting to help the whole ecosystem thrive, we're going to be okay. But I do think it means that resources have to be shared, especially for businesses that are not tech-centric, which is a lot of BIPOC businesses are not tech-centric. They require different types of support, access to funding that's not just going all to these tech companies. And so, yeah, I do think it's a very different focus and something that we have to be mindful of as we introduce even more tech dollars, tech companies, all these things. How does that affect and does that dry up some of the resources for some of the entrepreneurs who actually need it the most, who are maybe necessity-driven entrepreneurs, or doing it at a smaller scale, but it's their subsistence. So yeah, thanks for that question. I think that's more complex and takes a lot longer, but very necessary to keep an eye on.
And then one more question coming in via social media. The theme of your talk has been collaboration. If there's one thing that someone in our audience could do to build more collaboration in the community, what is that piece of advice you would give them?
I think as a practice, letting go of our egos, and this might sound kind of high level, but I feel like this is where all these conversations start. Someone has to go first. Someone has to be vulnerable first, and someone has to share information first, instead of saying, we're going to hold on to this and it's all proprietary or whatever it is. To be willing to say, hey, look, this is what we've done. This is how we're doing it. What do you do better than me? And have the humility to say, what does this organization do better than we do? Great. What do we do better than anybody else? Great. Now let's bring that to the table with the spirit of collaboration. And I do believe it comes down to starting with a mindset. It's scarcity versus abundance. If you see it as one pie, that if this group or this person or whatever gets a slice of the pie, it means it's less for me. If that's how you see it, there's not really a conversation. If you see, hey, together, we can make a pie factory, as many pies as anybody wants, and we all rise together. It's that mindset that allows us to come to the table and actually want to help. And, back to my earlier point, and then I'll shut up, but it's centering the right person as the hero of the story. If it's the entrepreneur, if it's the community that we're centering as the hero, then these collaborations, it's a no-brainer because it's not about us. It's about what do we have and how can we serve? And if everybody's coming to the table like that, which again, it takes some people going first, that's how I think the real change happens in community, that, we do rise together. So.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if enough people follow him on Twitter, he might start tweeting again. Give it up for Justin.
Yeah, I know.
Minott.
I haven't tweeted forever. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I had to call him out there. All right, we are halfway through our list of speakers. That means the train just keeps on rolling, ladies and gentlemen. Up next, he spent over a decade in public education before standing up STEM RTP in 2014. He's now working with Forward Cities, a national nonprofit supporting equitable ecosystem building. Please welcome Brenton.
Thank you, Wade. Hello to everyone. Good evening, and just an honor to share a stage, virtually or otherwise, with such a cool group of people. So yeah, let's cut to it. I work for Forward Cities, a national nonprofit headquartered in Durham, actually calling Providence 1898 home, who is pretty driven on one singular thing: closing the racial wealth gap in America and looking at entrepreneurship as the vehicle for change to do so. So as everyone knows, last year was an incredibly devastating year to small business, especially those businesses run by people of color. That's what makes our work and just this field such an important one in this day and age. In my time at Forward Cities, especially as the events of the last year unfolded, there was this thought that I had that kept kind of bubbling and crystallize, and it was about this aspiring class. It's really this disparate group of people across America who just aren't content with the status quo, their current role in the world, and aspire to do more. So I do recognize the word class is a tricky one, and I know what it suggests, but I want you to think horizontally about class, not in these vertical silos that tend to cordon us off from each other, but that, in terms of bleeding from one group into another, and seeing a city, with neighborhoods and community that has sprinklings of members of the aspiring class all around it. On the next slide, you'll see, this concept of aspiration. It's really, in my opinion, the key ingredient to the American story. It's what's made America so unique. It's driven all the innovation. It has done a lot of good. It's also done a lot of bad. But in essence, it's fueled by this sense of optimism and determination that, people just refuse to abandon, no matter what the circumstances are. So given the circumstances we're currently finding ourselves in and coming out of, the time feels really right for aspiration. So then you look at, and you'll see in the next slide, you'll see that, when we think about the entrepreneur, they really fit front and center in this idea of what the perfect example of the aspiring class is. Starting a business is extremely difficult. It also is the ultimate expression of aspiration in American society. You start off as a side hustler. You grow through, you have to have a lot of confidence. You grow through failure more than anything. And we find out very quickly what we're made of when we enter that realm of starting a business. So aspiration is kind of the key ingredient. But so must be considered the role of inequity. So as you'll see on this next slide, we as a country, really understand that starting a business is hard. But if you think about doing so without a lack of social or economic privilege, which many entrepreneurs do in this country, the challenge becomes pretty overwhelming. History is a rope. There is no event from today that was not directly influenced by and connected by something that occurred in the past. So when you look at post-Civil War reconciliation, when you look at the Wilmington Race Riots of 1898, when you look at redlining practices from the early 20th century that persevered even to today, or the two different justice systems that we still endure, you think about all those things, and then you think about, as an individual Black business owner, what does that mean, and how much does that influence their odds at optimal success? So as you'll see on the next slide, this is where the ecosystem comes in. We want to build a supportive ecosystem that stresses, all of the networks of connectivity, all the people that make it possible, the programs like RTP180 that bring us together and share ideas. And the stories that we can tell, both quantitative and qualitative stories that we can tell to make a difference and influence people to come along and understand the walk we're on. Connectivity is this driving force. When it really is lacking, what we see is that competition, to Justin's point, can really take over collaboration. So connectivity is going to be key. And that's exactly what an ecosystem is, as you've heard so many times today. It really creates a unique opportunity when you take an ecosystem lens to small business development. When we do our work, in order to make an ecosystem successful, we're coming in, we're assessing, we're looking at the strengths and the weaknesses of a particular ecosystem, which could be as small as a town in Eastern North Carolina, or as big as, a major metro. We think about where is it connected in these elements, the people, programs, networks, and narratives. And then where can we shore it up, working with community so that they can drive in a human-centered way their ability to dictate their future. So that's the concept broadly, but there's things that we can do. Some of you might not feel like you're tightly involved in any of the work that would have heavy influence on that. I think as individuals, as constituents and consumers, there's more that we can do, though. You can look at small businesses that are supported by Nolia Market, thank you, Justin, and Black Dollar in Raleigh. You can lend your time as a mentor or a coach if you have a skill that aspiring business owners need. You can make your voice heard to policymakers, both at the state and local level, especially right now, as we see federal stimulus flow down to cities and states and counties in ways it never has before in our lifetime, and probably never will again, hopefully never will again. And then you can take part in ecosystem events, just like tonight's, and many of the others that the other speakers tonight are highlighting. So do your part. Support the aspiring class, and let's write a new chapter in the American story. Thanks.
All right, great words there from Brenton. Going to you for questions in Zoom chat, Facebook Live, or Twitter. First questions coming in via social media. What would you say is the defining characteristic of an equitable ecosystem as opposed to a non-equitable ecosystem?
Yeah, it's a great question. Justin hit on a little bit on one end. There is this element of there's high tech, high growth, and a lot of ecosystem work and a lot of entrepreneurial support work is done on high tech, high growth. But an equitable approach is going to see the Main Street business is just as important as the tech business. It's not about number of employees. It's not about gross revenues. It's about how you can impact and change the life one individual at a time. Entrepreneurship it's not a zero-sum game. We can have many successful entrepreneurs, especially if we take that granular approach. But the key for me, and I mentioned a little bit before, is the concept of human-centered design. So if you're going to work with an ecosystem or members of an ecosystem to try to create better connections, to really lift up the resources that exist so that they can be accessed by others, then you're going to hear from the people that are affected by the barriers, by the obstacles, to keep them underconnected and under-resourced, and let them design the strategies to overcome them. That's what human-centered design is. And to us, that's what we've seen really give voice to what traditionally has been the voiceless, and develop strategies that then have a much higher rate of success when implemented.
There's my video button. Next question, also coming in from social media. You mentioned the influx of federal stimulus dollars as something that could be transformative. As disruptive as COVID has been, what do you see as another opportunity that this disruption provides to build a more equitable ecosystem on the other end?
Yeah, it's a great question. The one that's been most attractive to me, which we have worked on for years, but finally is getting, it seems, some national recognition. There's a huge funding stream for this, is the idea of navigators. So, you know, there's ESOs, these entrepreneurial support organizations, there's entrepreneurs in need. And then there's kind of this gap between the two. There might be a lack of familiarity, a lack of cultural competence on the part of ESOs. And a navigator is a person, an ecosystem builder, an ecosystem champion that understands both sides very well and can kind of serve as that translator, interpreter in some cases, but, you know, guide, steward, to make sure that people can connect to the right resources in a way that feels non-threatening, in a way that feels inclusive and accessible. So I'm really excited about that. I think that's a role that's here to stay. And it will only grow as a result of, you know, the current stimulus that's being rolled out.
Excellent. Last question coming in from social media. There are certainly people who have benefited from the status quo. What would you tell them is the reason that they should also support a more equitable ecosystem? How will it help everyone grow?
Yeah, I think, you know, there's broadly those who have benefited from the status quo. I'm one of them, you know, but more specifically, there are corporations in regions, in communities, in ecosystems. There are a number of people who have accumulated personal wealth. There's a powerful role to play. You know, a lot of philanthropy has been driven by, you know, funds that were garnered over centuries or decades at least, in ways that, you know, some might not view so favorably today. But we can be very nimble now, especially with CSR dedication, to think about an ecosystem as everybody's responsibility, to think of all of ourselves as stewards. So, you know, Triangle Community Foundation here in the Triangle is a great example of a donor-funded or donor-informed fund. And they will hear from the people who contribute to them so that we can have some collective impact that might not be possible otherwise. So that's probably, in the quick and easy, that's probably the best way to think about how you can lean in.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, learn a little bit more at Forward Cities. Big thanks to Brenton. All right, we're coming up on our 5th speaker of the evening. She serves as director at NC Idea, where her primary responsibilities are managing the seed and micro grant programs. Please welcome Amy Bastian.
Thank you, Wade. And yes, thank you to all the fellow speakers. Just like Dustin, I have been taking notes, and it's good to be inspired and hear from people in the same space and see all the questions coming in. All right, so a little bit of background. You know, growing up, I didn't appreciate how hard it was to start and run a business. In my family, working for the federal government was the norm. All that changed when I met my husband, who was a co-founder of a biotech company, but he had no support network. So our early years together involved him spending lots of time looking for funding and partnerships, and we moved numerous times when he went to work for other startups. I have a lot of empathy for startup founders and their families. I understand the exhilaration and the really hard choices that are part of the journey. And I bring that perspective to the work I do at NC Idea, an independent private foundation based in the Triangle that supports entrepreneurship across the state. And as you've heard from the previous speakers, you know, lately, news about big corporations coming to our state is dominating the headlines. Stories about Apple's new campus and Google's expansion. The stories are everywhere. And there's still articles on why Amazon didn't choose to build HQ2 here in the Triangle over 2.5 years ago. You've heard it a little bit about tonight, but what doesn't tend to get as much attention are all the new businesses that are starting in North Carolina recently. Hit a record-setting 127,000 last year, and we're on track to set another record of 170,000 by year end. As you've been hearing some of my fellow speakers say, you know, how do we as a community help these businesses survive and create jobs? First, like my fellow panelists, I want to raise awareness and give credit to the quantity, diversity, and quality of the local business support organizations that are already doing a lot of the work. This is one of the reasons that NCIDEA created its ecosystem grant to fund organizations in North Carolina that support businesses, small businesses, high growth startups, and founders. And we have such a wealth of these resources just in the Triangle. We've got government organizations that provide programs and resources to help start and grow a business, like the Small Business Center Network of community colleges and the SBTDCs offered by the UNC system. Accelerators like Riot, Launch Chapel Hill, Helios, and NCIDEA Labs. And then we have support networking organizations like CED, the Rural Center, and Prospera. And we have industry-specific organizations like Manufacturing Solutions Center and Piedmont Food and Beverage. Not to mention the universities, incubators, the co-working spaces, the organizations of my fellow speakers, and events like RTP180. By listing just a small number of these resources, I'm not trying to overwhelm you. I'm really just trying to help raise awareness of the impactful work being done across the state. So if you're a founder and you haven't found a program or a resource for you, do some research and reach out to some of these organizations. Even if they seem like they're not the right fit, they do want to hear from you and figure out if they can help you, and if not, if they can connect you to an organization that can. And while there isn't one place to learn about all the opportunities, NCIDEA has a list of its ecosystem partners on its website as a place to start. So if you're a founder, in addition to connecting with these organizations, I also encourage you to reach out directly to individuals. And while this may be intimidating, of all the places I've lived, I found the local community here to be incredibly supportive and generous with their time. So where do you start? Who do you reach out to? When people ask me this, I suggest reaching out to individuals in your field, founders with similar backgrounds, someone at one of these entrepreneurial support organizations, or a subject matter expert. But whoever you reach out to, make it really easy for them to help you. First, make sure you've done your research and you know why you're actually reaching out to them. And then make sure it's clear to them what they hope to get from that meeting. And don't ask too much of their time, be flexible with their schedule. And in the meeting, they probably will ask how they can be of help next, and have a clear ask of them, have a clear answer. And then I know there are many of you who are not starting a business, but you can still help support the growth of businesses in the state. If someone reaches out to you for business advice, please take that meeting and say yes. By giving your time, you're giving them the experience about talking about their company. You can provide insight and advice and just give them a different perspective. You can also make introductions for them and help them build their network. And remember, starting out asking for advice from a stranger really isn't easy for many founders, though it does get easier. And the reality is many founders move on from their companies and they end up going looking for jobs, and maybe at your company. So don't penalize people for taking the risk to start a company, even if it doesn't end up working out. These people may not have a resume that looks like all the others. So value their experiences they've gained from starting and running a company. And then I leave with an ask of you, similar to some of my fellow speakers. When you have the time and resources, really raise awareness of North Carolina startups, small businesses, and their supporting communities. Become an advisor and mentor, maybe to an individual or to one of the companies. And if you are able, invest in North Carolina startups, because as you're hearing a lot tonight, together we can help more North Carolina companies succeed. And thank you.
All right, big thanks there to Amy Bastian. Questions coming from you, our audience, in Zoom chat, on social media, through Twitter or Facebook Live. First question is coming in through social media. Is there a benefit to networking outside of your chosen industry?
I think so, but I think again, it's going back to what do you want to learn from it? Is it a founder story? Is it just to get a different perspective because you've only been talking to people in the industry? So I think it goes back to what do you hope to gain? Or maybe it's somebody who has real experience in marketing. And we find this with a lot of founders. They go in, they have a product or service, they know a lot about that, but they don't know how to market it. They don't know how to talk about it. So it could be, that you reach out to someone who has a skill set that you don't, and just learn a little bit more about it. Maybe before even going out to say hire a marketing company, because not nothing against marketing, but you can spend a lot of money on marketing and other things, if you don't have a knowledge of that industry. So I think there can be, but I think it goes back to, what is to use NCIDEA customer discovery speak? What's the problem you're trying to solve by having that conversation? What do you hope to gain from it?
All right. Next question coming in from social media. From a business's perspective, can you talk a little bit about trying to make the decision between attempting to get funding and bootstrapping?
Yes, so we have this conversation a lot with our companies. So there are a couple of things. One, fundraising is a full-time job. It takes a lot of time. So be aware of that, and kind of think of the trade-offs that you'll be giving up in terms of focusing on other parts of your business. I mean, the majority of companies don't get funding. And I think also being aware of researching the types of investment groups, whether it's angel investors or other investment groups, to figure out which ones would be a good fit for you. And oftentimes these groups, they'll meet with founders. And so, you can reach out maybe, early on, and if you just wanted to get a little bit of advice, talk to angel investors, but just to keep in mind that it takes a lot of time, and the earlier you are in your company's development, you're probably going to give up a lot more equity in your company to get investment early on. So, we support our companies if they want to go down the investment path, but we also have some pretty straightforward talks with them that it's challenging, it takes a lot of time, and there are trade-offs, but it is the path for some companies.
All right, next question coming in from social media. Here at RTP180, we're talking about the Triangle area ecosystem. You mentioned a North Carolina ecosystem. What other cities are doing interesting things that entrepreneurs in the Triangle should take notice of?
Absolutely, and I don't know if this question came from Jim Roberts. I feel like Jim Roberts, who's also, I know, one of the attendees today, will have a lot to say about this. He's doing great work in Wilmington. And then also, I mean, we have so many partners across the state, to be honest. I mean, there's great work being done, in the Wilmington area, the eastern part of the state. And then you have organizations like Innovate Charlotte, Prospera down in Charlotte, you have Venture Asheville out in Asheville. You've got the Access Center for Equity, and I'm not going to get their full name right, so I apologize. I mean, there's just honestly so much good work being done. And I think one of the things and this is a continued theme that we've heard, is I think there's more connectivity, and we're trying to figure out how to learn which groups are doing really well supporting which types of entrepreneurs. Because, at NCIDEA, we're a 9-person organization and we only have so much bandwidth. So, we actually oftentimes point entrepreneurs to other groups. So I think, I feel like we could go on and on and talk about so many of these support organizations individually, but I think we're all doing really great work. But it's just figuring out, I think, the right ones to connect the entrepreneur. Going back to kind of the human-centered focus is what's the need of the entrepreneur, and figuring out which of those organizations to connect them to.
All right, sounds like no matter what you're doing in North Carolina and where you are, there's going to be someone there to help you. Big thanks to Amy Bastian. And last but certainly not least, she's got a passion for serving high-impact entrepreneurial ventures, and she's doing that now through the First Flight Venture Center. Please welcome our next speaker, Krista Covey.
Thank you so much, Wade. This has been amazing. I am just so honored to be here with this great group of people. So again, my name is Krista Covey. I'm the president of First Flight Venture Center. First Flight is the longest standing science and technology business incubator in North Carolina, and we are located right here in RTP. We are focused on serving what we call high science, high impact companies that are out to change the world for good. We love helping entrepreneurs turn good ideas into great successes. And tonight I'm going to be talking about triangle topophilia, which means the love of place. So topos is Greek for place, and philia means the love of or love for some place. So I'm going to invite you all to have triangle topophilia and love the place you're in, because it will definitely love you right back. So I moved here to the Triangle almost exactly a year ago in the midst of the COVID pandemic, when everything was shut down. Prior to my moving here, I knew the legacy of RTP as a place of great science and research and innovation and very smart people. And I also knew what a great place North Carolina was, with the great beaches and mountains and great food and hiking trails, which is a personal favorite. But what I really fell in love with was the people here. innovative people who are really truly changing the world for good. So even with all the economic unrest COVID has dealt us, it has definitely given us so many silver linings, and it put our science and technology innovators in the headlines and has given a spotlight on the importance of innovation and entrepreneurship. So we know startups account for almost all the net new job creation in the USA, which is important in an economic crisis, but new businesses also create increased wealth in a community, more economic and social opportunities, a better quality of life, and chances for individuals to increase their transferable skill sets. Entrepreneurs are change makers, the ones working relentlessly to solve big problems humanity faces like pandemics. And a good example is when some of the first flight member companies like Trio Labs and Planted immediately went to work building new ventilators when that was what was needed at the time last year. But we have so many other innovations happening every day right here at First Flight, like Nala Systems, who's a mother-daughter duo working to solve complex water purification problems when industrial water filters go bad after time. And they understood the problem, got creative, and developed technology to make chlorine-tolerant filters, which in this industry is the holy grail. And they are disrupting the water filter industry. Now more people can have safe and accessible drinking water. And we also have a First Flight company called NCX, who has further developed the X-ray technology to provide handheld devices with clear imaging that's better than any of the technology that's been developed over the past 100 years. This means we'll be able to provide better patient outcomes and even strengthen our national security. And these are just a few of the companies that are developing world-changing science and technology at First Flight. And we've seen over 400 companies in the past 30 years. And that's just at First Flight. As you know, today, we have a wonderful entrepreneurial ecosystem here in the Triangle working tirelessly to make a difference. So what's First Flight doing? First Flight is doing our part to love the Triangle by reducing barriers to success for entrepreneurs and helping them provide comprehensive resources like labs and offices, mentoring, education, funding, and so much more to ensure that every innovator and entrepreneur has the best chance for success. And we know incubation works. Unfortunately, only 20% of companies make it past 5 years, and that's a terrible statistic. However, we also know that 87% of companies that are in a business incubator make it past the 5-year mark. That's a good statistic. Even better, 84% of those graduates will stay in the community that supported them, and I dare say that loved them. So just over 60 years ago, when the Research Triangle Park was created, this was the poorest region in the 3rd poorest state in the country. But look at it today. It's a wonderful reminder that things can change and that leadership, collaboration, and entrepreneurship matter greatly. So again, I invite you to have the Triangle Topophilia and love the place you're in, and it will love you right back. Support our innovators who are coming up with the solutions to face today's challenges. Celebrate them, buy from them, tell their stories, do business with them, and even being an entrepreneur yourself, if you so desire. We have great resources to help you here. And we have the potential to create the innovative place that defines the progress of our century. So let's leverage the love of the Triangle to do the things no one has ever done before as a region together. We've done it before, so let's commit ourselves to doing it again. Thank you.
All right, great stuff there from Krista Covey. Questions from you, our audience in Zoom chat, Facebook Live, on Twitter. First, from me, actually. Welcome to the Triangle.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here. Normally, we are out of our houses a little more, so we've got that going for us, which is nice. As someone who has come in from the outside, who's joining us here in the Triangle, what do you see as kind of our region's ace in the hole? Like, what is it that sets the Triangle apart and makes it an exciting place for you to come to?
Absolutely. So I will say wholeheartedly, it's the collaboration here. We have a wonderful group, obviously some great friends and new friends on this Zoom call tonight. But the collaboration from a group that I'm a part of called the ESO, which is the Entrepreneur Support Organizations here in the Triangle, we're meeting on a monthly basis. And we're really, it's all about working together. How can we support our entrepreneurs? How can we support our community? How can we love our community better together? And so I think that's just a beautiful thing that's happening here. You know, I came when, you know, I couldn't have face-to-face meetings. Everything was digital. And I've just found some wonderful people, made some wonderful friends, and it's all been, you know, through Zoom and phone calls and emails and things like that. But the digital divide can't stop us. I mean, it's truly a wonderful collaborative community. And I think there's so much heart around serving our community, serving our innovators here, and that resonates throughout everybody's work.
All right, question coming in from social media. For an entrepreneur who is starting a business and sees that statistic about the success rate for businesses that have participated in an incubator versus ones that have not, what are the biggest advantages that an incubator will give them to lead to that positive outcome?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think collisions were made previously. So you've got an opportunity for a community and to create collisions. So these are happy collisions. You get to be around other entrepreneurs that are on the same journey. You know, entrepreneurship is a team sport. You know, the going gets tough, and you have to have that support, whether it's mentoring, coaching, or being around peers that are, you know, traversing the terrain with you. That makes it so much better. And so just being in that community of support. Also, you know, you're going to have your good days and bad days. And so on the good days, you have a whole community rallying for you, being your champion, cheering you on. And then some days it's like, man, you got to, you know, come back from the ledge. It'll be okay. And so you need that support to keep going sometimes. And so it's really nice to be with others in a community environment, for sure.
All right. Another question coming in from social media. The headlines in the entrepreneurial world here in the Triangle tend to get dominated by software or biotech companies. From your position at First Flight, what is an interesting industry that is flying a little bit under the radar but shouldn't be?
So, gosh, there's so many. So ag tech is I don't know that that's under the radar. But we're just seeing a lot of interesting things in the ag space, particularly here at First Flight. We've got some folks that are working in, you know, in the farms and caring for the health of livestock and plants. And so there's some really interesting things happening in the ag space. And so, and that can mean, you know, the ag space can mean so many different things. That could be genetics, it could be manufacturing, it could be a number of different things. But I just think that that's a really interesting and such a strong industry for North Carolina as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, we all got to eat, right? And ag tech is making the best of our resources here in the North Carolina and worldwide.
Absolutely.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, big hand for Krista Covey.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of RTP180 for May 2021. Our subject has been small business ecosystem. We thank you, yes, you, for joining us here tonight. Now we're coming up on June, and that means yet again another RTP180 on our third Thursday in June. That will be June 17th, 2021 at 6 p.m. Our subject will be ecology. Forgot what that was. I think it has something to do with deer. Don't know. But tune in 6 p.m. on June 17th. You will find 5 speakers on the subject of ecology dropping some knowledge on you. Tell a friend, tell a family, come by the Frontier in RTP. We are going to be doing these RTP 180s in person again at some point in the future. Keep an eye on the website for information about that. Until then, on behalf of my virtual background, I have been your MC, Wade Mentor, saying thank you for joining us for the small business ecosystem and have a safe journey home. Good night, everybody.